What is up, everybody? My name is Chad Brock.
And I'm Zach Bailiff.
You guys are watching the Orion Podcast, episode 25. Welcome back, everybody, to the Orion Podcast. We're going to kind of rush into this thing tonight. We've got a special guest. Really, probably needs no introduction to half of our kayak fishing crowd out there, but he's the godfather of the kayak fishing accessory game, and we're happy to have him on our show tonight. So, without further ado, Luther Cifers.
What's up, fellas?
What's up, man?
After that introduction, I was wondering who the mystery guest was.
I was waiting on the Jerry Springer button he's got, and it was just a nice quiet intro.
It was a nice quiet sleep. You wasn't here last time, Zach. So
no,
me and Jim Sammons, man, we just rolled right into this thing. So, but Luther, how are you tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
So let's kind of break into this thing real quick. And for those people at home that don't maybe know you or know your story, how did you get started into the outdoors industry?
Started as I guess you would say, a participant with some engineering background and manufacturing background. Me and my buddy Bob were fishing Chesapeake Bay, the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, for the Virginia folks that know where that is. And just out there at night, and, where we were fishing, you're kind of under a bridge, targeting fish that were kind of exposed in the light line, and you'd be fighting a fish, and the current or the wind would just push you out into the light where the boats were flying down the side of the bridge. So we came up with a little homemade light, and the buddies at the boat ramp started asking for one, and pretty soon it was like, may as well write off the fishing trip. So if we start a little business, we could do that. And that turned into, after about a year, it was clear, or actually probably after about 6 months, it was clear there was a bigger opportunity there than I thought it was. And that's when I kind of really got serious about it.
So looking back, what was one of the first products that really come to fruition? Or
it was the first one. It was the VisiPole. So it was the predecessor to the Carbon Pro, and it was basically a 3/4 inch, essentially PVC pipe. It's a furniture grade PVC. It doesn't have any writing on it. It's kind of nice looking,
right?
But it's PVC, reacts to PVC glue, and we used to cobble together a Tektite dive light and PVC pipe and some reflective tape and, some eyelets and a flag. And we sold about 700 of those the first year and made just enough money on that to tool up the Carbon Pro. The first product that made it a viable business was the VisiCarbon.
Wow.
We when we launched that, it kind of about tripled the sales, something like that. And that's when it was like, okay, this could be something.
Now, talking about the PVC pipe and all that kind of fun stuff, we've had Jameson Redding on here, obviously Jim Sammons, Chad Hoover. Everybody kind of we always end up talking about the old days of rigging when we have the kayak fishermen on here, and everybody's super thankful for you. But looking back, do you miss cobbling up any of those PVC contraptions that we used to, or is there like a Hall of Fame at YakAttack with some of these OG items somewhere?
all the prototypes.
All the
No,
prototypes.
man, we're still cobbling stuff together. We just get to do it with better tools now. We were literally doing it today. We've got a new mount that we're kind of fast tracking to production. That will be, the world will probably find out about it. I think dealers found out about it Monday.
Mm-hmm.
The world will find out about it shortly after that. It's pretty brand specific, addresses a kind of a void in the industry. But we were playing with that thing today. All of us kind of crowded around, and we started realizing, oh, well, if we do this, we can just put an arm on it without having to use a lock and load. But, just tinker toying the thing together. And it's amazing how something that, when it was first presented to me, I was like, yeah, we can do that in like a week. We're really fast with tooling. So it usually takes us much longer. Well, it always takes us much longer to design a product than it does to tool it. So I was like, yeah, it's super simple, like what we're the original scope, but man, I ought to know by now, but it never ends up like it starts. The good stuff comes along that path of development. And today was one of those kind of like, actually it started yesterday, kind of a lightning bolt. And then that spilled over into today. And anyway, now it's super cool, but we were doing exactly what you're saying. We're just cobbling together whatever we had on the table and figuring out different things we could do with it.
Just give me a box of parts and I'll build something out of it.
Yeah. Hey, and that's, I literally told John that today. I said, it doesn't matter what we think of. Even if we can't see a need for this particular compatibility, we don't have to see it, because I guarantee kayak anglers will.
Oh, yeah. I mean, kayak fishing is, it's been crafty ever since the dawn of its existence. And man, you've probably touched about every single kayak on the market these days with the rail tracks and the different things that you've got out there.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons that, as an independent accessory brand, we built a pretty good business, and it's much easier than if you're a kayak brand building accessories, because, it's hard to, people just aren't likely to put, Ford parts on a Chevy.
Mm-hmm.
So being kind of brand agnostic and kind of serving the industry as opposed to trying to, protect a core kayak brand. I think that's one of the reasons that we've been able to be as successful as we are. We're kind of have something for everyone. We try to.
I would say that's definitely fair.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, shoot, I've got
Guys, my screen froze up. Hang on 1 second. This is a video card issue. It should be back in a second.
Oh,
okay,
we see you fine.
Back. Sorry.
Yeah.
No,
I had to close my lid and open it back up and then log back in. And then it's fine. It happened.
We thought you went down, man. He fell down. What just happened? Hey, stranger things have happened on the Orion podcast.
I pride myself on quick naps, but they're never that quick.
This is a Jackson Kayak product, Orion Coolers product. We're not perfect by no means. So as you guys are moving forward here, I know you've got new products coming out. When you're looking out at the future of kayak fishing, we've come a long way since you guys first started putting parts out on the market. The boats have continuously gotten better. Number one, did you ever think it would come this far? And where do you see it really evolving to? What could possibly be next?
For the industry, I'm not sure I ever had a mental ceiling as far as where the industry would top out at. It's real interesting seeing your bows and stuff back there, Zach, because from the very early days of my involvement in this sport, it reminded me of archery.
Mm-hmm.
And back in I guess it was the late 80s when I got into archery, and the compound bows were just really starting to be a thing. It's like this technological advancement that took a very primitive way of going out and hunting, essentially,
right.
And made it a lot more accessible to a lot more people. And the sit on top rotomolded kayak did the exact same thing.
Yep.
Kayaks and bows have both been around for much, much longer than the current industries. So, and when you kind of look at the numbers and you look at how many people fish versus how many people hunt, it was clear that there was a lot of upside opportunity here, and it has that kind of hook the same way that archery does.
For sure.
So I never really put a mental ceiling on it. I knew it had a lot of potential to go really far. I also knew there were a couple of barriers, like bows are easy to put in the closet, kayaks aren't. So people who live in apartments and stuff like that can be a little more difficult. But for our business, I would have given it a almost zero chance probability of becoming what it has become. Even 5 years in, I would not have predicted this. And I think we will probably in the next few years we'll at least double this business again.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly within kayak fishing. We'll probably branch out into some other watercraft fishing related stuff. But man, it's a playground. There's so much demand. It's so much innovation. The customers really care about the experience. It's not commoditized yet.
Mm-hmm.
People are willing to, they understand what it takes to build a premium product, and they're willing to pay for the premium experience. And that's where we play. I mean, that's the only place we really want to play. We do try to find ways to bring the price point and the functionality together, and sometimes you can do that better than others, but
Right.
We put the consumer experience first. The service and the experience comes first, and then we do what we can on price. But so it's a really fun industry to play in because there's still a lot of real estate to be developed in my view. Even for our brand, I mean, you look at the categories we're in, and you look at the possibilities within the sphere of kayak fishing. There's a lot of places I think we could add value that we haven't yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in my mind, that's the right approach. I mean, it's kind of the buy one, cry once, but at the same time, if a guy buys a mount or, some accessory that you make and it lasts him 10, 12 years, you're more likely to retain that guy as a customer. He's likely to come back and buy other stuff versus a $5 product off the shelf that he's got to, go out and break in 2 weeks and come back and buy 2 or 3 more throughout the summer.
Yeah, and we do try to put the customer first, Zach, but like, if I'm being completely frank, it's also a little bit selfish. Like, we enjoy doing things that are really cool, and really cool things are premium.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could have stopped with this kayak cart. John was just talking about it today. He was like, because I need to be careful here. But anyway, we were talking about some other stuff. And he said today, he's like, we could have launched this thing a year ago. It was a totally different product. And we kept seeing opportunity. We're like, well, let's develop that opportunity. And then by the time we got there, we saw some more opportunity. We said, well, let's develop that opportunity. So, we delayed the launch a lot to get to where we are. But I mean, it's a seriously legit, platform. And, that's what we like to do. We have fun doing that. We have more fun doing that than just, oh yeah, well, we need to pick up X percent of revenue. How quickly can we? And actually, if we did that, we could really make some hay with it for a couple of years because we're so fast.
Mm-hmm.
We're so fast, and particularly with like I said, once the design is finished, we can launch a product and there's very few companies, and I'm not talking about in our industry. I'm talking about in our country that can compete with our speed to market. But the development process is where we geek out and have fun, and we just aren't willing to leave a lot of meat on the bone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, sometimes as my colleague that I started Magpump with told me, sometimes you have to shoot the engineer if you want to get it to market. So we also sometimes have to be like, okay, guys, that's enough.
Yeah. Engineers like to reinvent things over and over and over sometimes, rather than just saying, yeah, that's pretty good, let's go with that.
Oversimplify.
Well, hey, Chad, that is the key right there. So, and people ask me sometimes, they're like, man, everything you guys launch, like, it really works. Like, what? And people want to know what kind of training I have. I'm like, School of Hard Knocks, brother.
Yeah.
But the way I describe our talent skill at YakAttack, if you will, is I say we're exceptionally average. And what I mean by that is we think exactly like our customer. We don't think differently than our customers, and then we're delivering these things that enlighten our like we think like our customers. We're very similar to our customers. So if it's cool to us, which we literally every day just build stuff that we feel like is cool, that's fun and good experience to use and intuitive and all that. Well, if we feel that way, our customer tends to feel that way, and it's not because we have some heightened sense of awareness. It's because we have the same sense of awareness. So simplifying is often the best path to a great product. And I remember the early days, not just in kayak fishing, but, I was designing machines and other kinds of products and different things before that. And if somebody looked at a design in my early days when I was young and had something to prove, and said, "Oh, I can't believe somebody else didn't think of that," I'd be like, "Hey, this isn't as easy as it looks." Internally, I'm thinking like, "Hey, come on, give me some credit here." Now, when I hear that, I'm like, "Okay, guys, this one's going to be a ringer."
Yeah.
Because it resonates, and what the skill that we're trying to sharpen is to scale our business without losing that. That ability to resonate with a consumer and think like a consumer and be a consumer, be our customer, be an enthusiast in the sport as opposed to a corporation. That's where our strength is, and even it's funny. Usually it's the leadership in a company that's pushing towards standardizing and systemizing and all this stuff. And we're doing that. We have to do that to scale. We've got to get better at that. But what I'm preaching to the team all the time is every system we create has to work for our vision. Our vision should never work for the system that we're creating. It's just to facilitate us being able to do what we do on a larger scale, and we can't ever lose this willingness to throw it in the trash and start over. It's like, oh, our strategic plan says we're going to do X, Y, Z. The plan is important. The ability to change the plan is even more important.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason for that, for me, and I can ramble about this kind of stuff all day long because I found it fascinating. It's the same thing when you're developing a product. It's like, well, from here, I can see this far.
Right.
So I'll take the next step towards what I think I can see. Well, now I'm at a new vantage point. And from that new vantage point, I can see more, or I can see better. And every step you take during the road of product development or building a business or anything else, it's like that. And if you think that you can, from right where you're standing, see the end all be all, that's arrogance and it's unrealistic. And you're actually going to limit yourself by doing that. So we really allow ourselves to be flexible and to acknowledge that, we have again, we're exceptionally average. We don't have the ability to plan 2 years in advance. So we plan a couple of days in advance. We try to have a big plan, that kind of tells us what our overall goals are. But the steps to achieve those goals, we're very seldom looking out farther than a week or two in a product. Very seldom. And it makes it fun. We make decisions every day. The team can collaborate every day. Everybody's input matters every day. And
that collaboration also, it builds morale within the group if everybody's got a little bit of a say.
It absolutely does. And it makes the products better. The best products we have built, I get a lot of credit at YakAttack for being a product developer, but man, I'm going to tell you, every single one of the best products that we've built, the Black Pack, the lock and load system, this new kayak cart, really everything we've done for the last 5 years or so, which is a lot of our best stuff. There was another lead designer. I was guiding the process to a degree and collaborating and, and helping it. I would say if I had to define my role at YakAttack now, it's kind of like knowing where to go from here and knowing when it's ready. But the skills to actually develop, it's easier to say it than it is to do it. And that is almost exclusively now coming from other people.
Right.
So everybody matters like critically every day. And our team knows that.
Now, this is kind of an off the wall question. What are some of the goofiest things the team has brought in, or someone like us that's hit you up on Facebook or whatever and said, I want a pizza oven to hang off the side of my kayak or something. What's the most ridiculous thing that's come across the airwaves?
Well, a portable grill mount did come up a while back. One of these camping grills. We get them all the time. It's usually not so much. There's been a few that are just way out there, but it's usually not as much out there crazy as it's just super narrow.
Right.
It's like, I want something that does this. And it's like, yeah, but 4 people.
Yeah. You and 15 of your buddies. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And people who might be doing the exact same, and then more than 4, but you know what I mean? Like people who are doing that exact thing might really like it. But, if people want to complain about, the price of a $250 cart, wait till you give them a $600 custom machine. Well, you see it with some of the machine handles and stuff that are coming out. People are paying as much for handles as they did for, a quarter of the cost of their kayak can go into 2 or 3 machined aluminum parts. So
Yeah.
You know, it's more of those kind of things that we run into where people want something, but it's just too narrow. And, you know, our business has from day one been really focused on specialty retail as well. So we've got to be cognizant of what the dealers can handle.
Yep.
You know, because if the dealers get to the point they're like, hey, we can't even support your product line, like 800 SKUs that do all these little individual things, even if we could manage to somehow do it and be effective and be, you know, cost conscious and all that, it would create a nightmare for the dealers. So try to figure out things that are, I think the best way to say it is, and we were talking about Pete a little while ago, Zach. Pete's one of the ones who kind of put this in context for me. He said, you know, when we first met, he was kind of getting to know me a little bit. He said, you know, one thing I figured out about you is you wouldn't do anything to hurt your industry. And that means you're going to make good decisions. And that's really the litmus test. It's like, is this good for the industry? If it's good for the industry, it's going to be good for our business. If it's bad for dealers, it's probably bad for the industry. You know, and anyway, so those are kind of the rules we try to live by. The other thing is you end up with so many, like at any point in time since day one, really, well, actually I'd say a year in when we really started thinking beyond that one product, there's always been more opportunity than bandwidth.
Yeah.
So you're going to try to choose the ones that make the biggest impact, not just on the business, but again, what makes the biggest impact on the business is the thing that makes the biggest impact on the industry.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, you know, it's funny you say it like that, because that's one of the things that we've been talking about lately at AAE. And some of the things we're doing over there is, unless it makes archery better, we're not going to do it. We're not coming out with products just to have some gimmicky new product that, you know, got launched this year. I mean, unless it's making the industry or archery as a whole better, there's not a whole lot of point in it, you know?
Yeah, man. And, you know, it's really hard to gain, like, I call it like benefit of the doubt status. So when we launch a new product, these days we have the benefit of the doubt from day one. Dealers expect it to be successful. You know, our customers expect it to be successful. The kayak anglers out there, and our competitors expect it to be successful. You know, there's this like expectation that if they brought it to market, it's because it's ready and it's because it's right. And it's going to be successful. You can make some short-term plays that might be profitable in the short term because you don't make the investment, you don't take the time, and you don't do it right. And you can get away with that for a couple of years. I don't know if you've ever read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I quote that book all the time, but Stephen Covey calls it feeding the goose. He's like, people know not to cut the goose. At this point, people know not to cut the goose open and get the golden eggs out, but they forget to feed the goose. To do the things that created the capacity to do what you're doing requires like maintenance and care that might not be obvious. And even if you change it, it might not be obvious immediately that you changed it. But over time, you know, it'll really damage your brand. So that's the other thing we do. And we've canned projects that just didn't develop to the point, even projects that we invested too heavily in, that never developed to the point to be worthy of the YakAttack brand.
Yeah, it's easy to lose the trust of your customer base. And once you do that, it's hard to get it back.
Very difficult.
So we just hired a VP of sales, Joe Butler. He ran Black Creek Outfitters down in Jacksonville. Joe's an amazing human being, excellent entrepreneur, business guy, strategic thinker, knows retail inside and out. He's been already just so pivotal for our business. But Joe told me when I launched Bonafide back a long time ago, Joe walked into the booth. He said, "Man, I'm here for a couple of meetings. I gotta leave in just a little bit." And he was like, "I want to be a dealer. Do you have the territory?" And I was like, "Yes, we reserved it for you." And he was like, "Okay, I need to write an order, but I don't know anything about your boat line. I need you to write the order for me." I was like, "You want me to write your order?" No problem. and he leaned across the table and he said, "Hey, man, I want you to remember something. Trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets."
That's good.
And it took me a minute to even absorb that. And I've quoted
good.
that 100 times, more than 100 times since then, because it's one of the most profound statements I've ever heard. And it's so true.
Yeah,
That is a good
absolutely.
one. I need to write that down.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
It's a
commit
good
that one to
one,
memory.
man.
That's
Credit it to Joe Butler.
that's for lack of better words, that's dang good.
Yeah.
You know, we've been focusing at one of the exercises we've been going through at Jackson Kayak is what's your why? The Simon Sinek, or however you say his last name, a whole ordeal. So curious, like-minded business people, give us the why.
The why has evolved as the business has evolved. It's not that like the core why hasn't changed, but there's new whys now that didn't exist before. The original why was, you know, I cut my teeth. So first off, when I was about 17 or so, big surprise, developed a rebellious streak, 17-year-old, a teenage, guy. But I developed a really rebellious streak and spent, I don't know, 2 or 3 years just being stupid. I'm really lucky that didn't end poorly. But I went to work at a manufacturing company, very entry-level position, and the ecosystem within that business and the mentorship and, the coaching and you're just learning about things. It changed my life. There's no doubt in my mind it changed my life. I had a mentor there. His name's Chuck Patterson, that took me under his wing way before anybody else would have even let's just say at the time, I probably didn't seem worth it, but Chuck saw something there, and Chuck's about 10 years older than I am. And he had kind of been there, done that, so to speak, and he could see the path I was on and who I was hanging out with. And, figured probably between the lines, kind of trouble I was getting myself into. And, between all of that, it's not like when you're at home and you've got parents and your parents are telling you what to do. It was more, exposing you to opportunity and encouraging and suggesting and, and training. Mm-hmm. And it changed my life. It really did. And then as I developed within that business, it evolved to everything's getting shipped out of the country. This is when NAFTA had really opened the floodgates to Mexico. And, the company that I was working for at the time, we had a plant actually one door down from the current YakAttack plant, but it was a French company. It was a worldwide company. So they were moving things to other countries where labor was cheaper. And so my last work for that company was helping shut the plant down and move it, which was good for my family because at the time I needed some work, but it wasn't a good experience. It was heartbreaking.
Right.
And so I just began to realize that we're consumers, but we're not making stuff. And I'm really glad to see in the last 5 or 10 years, we've started to make stuff more. A lot of things have come back. I think technology has enabled that. And I think logistics costs and things have enabled that. But it started as that, just kind of determined that we're going to do it here in the US. And then the other thing is I came from the automotive industry, which is there's this brutal relationship between customers and suppliers to the point that, the suppliers are not really always honest with GM or Ford. Because if you're honest with them, they'll just rake you over the coals with requirements and unnecessary burden and all that stuff. So I spent my last few years there. I was pretty influential in that business. So a lot of the times when we had issues, I was the one dealing with these customers. And I realized after I left there, I was I was borderline professional liar. My job was to keep them sometimes from knowing the truth. That at the time, it was just it was the game. It was what I was trained to do. It was what we were supposed to do. But I realized that's not right. That's literally not right. So it started as that, here's an opportunity to do things the way that I think it should be done. I think we should make stuff here. Do I see anything wrong with making stuff overseas? I actually don't. A lot of people misconstrue that. If you want to make stuff overseas, do it, but own it and do it for a reason and own the reason. But, when it's it's made overseas, and you're not willing to pay a living wage to Americans, but that's your consumer. And then you're, which we're lucky in our industry. We don't have a lot of the cannibalization of IP and stuff like that. We've got pretty respectful competitors. But on Amazon right now, we've gotten carbon copied out of China. Yes. I'm talking about, I bought a Rotogrip because I didn't know if it was surplus that was ours. And when I put it in my hand, I was this is one of our early ones. But then I took it apart, and the nut pocket that's molded in is for metric nut. This is not our mold, but they scanned it because it's even got the same imperfections in the mold. And I knew about that. So, anyway, so it started like that. As it's evolved, I mean, we've got people working in our business that started in just like I did at Carbine. Actually, we don't have any people that were as stupid as I was when I was 19. Literally, not that I know of anyway. But as far as starting super entry level, no experience, completely green, and they're helping run our business now. We've got people in serious careers that when they came here didn't even know what they wanted to do with their careers, so that has become more and more kind of a why as things have went on. We have actually demonstrated the ability. Now it's like a machine that's turning out products and benefiting an industry, and we're making stuff in the US and we're creating jobs. but we're also creating like livelihoods, like real livelihoods. Like there's people who came to work for us in beaters and they pull up in their nice new cars now, you know, and they have raised kids and they're, you know, raising kids and they're saving for college and they're, you know what I mean? Like, so that's become a big part of the why. And, you know, it's always been also just my family. You know, I'd like to have some security. You know, I came from really humble roots and, you know, I appreciate that. I appreciate, actually, those are my favorite kind of people, practical, humble, just decent people. But, you know, I lived paycheck to paycheck most of my life, you know, including most of my tenure at YakAttack. It's only been in the last few years that it's began to produce anything that you could even consider surplus. So there's a lot of whys, Chad. I can't say any have been replaced, but they've been added to as time has gone on.
Well, that's got to feel good knowing that you've built something that's not only supported your family, but it's created a family outside of the home and basically built a community around YakAttack.
It does. And it feels like a little bit of repayment of a debt. Like I said, Chuck, you know, there's a guy, Dave DeRazio, Shin Mayumi, you know, these are some of the early mentors that I had that created opportunity that took me from, you know, I mean, for that place to hire me, and I think it was $5.25 an hour, maybe it was $4.75 an hour. For them to hire me, I had to go get my GED because I didn't finish school. So, you know, for those guys looking at somebody, you know, with those kind of credentials or lack thereof and saying, you know, I see something in this guy, and then giving me the opportunity, you know, to end up in an engineering department and design these machines and building a career and all that stuff. You don't really go through that without feeling there's a certain amount of debt that you need to pay back, you know,
right.
To the world, you know, to God, you know, to you know, just if you get opportunities that help you, you should provide those opportunities to others given the chance.
Right. Yeah. Paying it forward.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's right.
We've both, Zach and I have both in our endeavors, both have felt the same way for a long time. And we've, you know, we've always worked on that. And I always try to think about the kid, you know, that's watching and, you know, try to set a good example there. I think that's always important too. So before we let you go, you've got to work with some of the most fun guys. We've talked about them: Jim Sammons, Jamison Redding, Chad Hoover. Who's been the biggest pain out of all them guys so far?
Man, everybody that you mentioned, I really have become good friends with, and I really like those guys. The one that I'd say I got off to the rockiest start with was Jim.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because, you know, Jim's got this like edge to him. And also Jim's a little bit intimidating, you know, especially when I first met him. You know, here's a celebrity basically, you know, that I've been watching his show for years. And, you know, and I guess I expected some sort of, you know, like, I don't know, warm welcome or something. But instead, like Jim just rode me the whole trip, you know, everything from mimicking my paddling technique to, you know, giving me a hard time because he lost a rod. Actually, he dove in and got it, but he's the one who left the rod holder loose. Anyway, so Jim was, but once I got to know Jim, he's one of the people I like most in this industry. Jim is a genuine, and I've, especially as I've gotten older, I have come to appreciate people that what you see is what you get. And Jim is a guy who will do anything he can to help anybody. He's a great human being. And he's very direct, but he's also got a sense of humor. And I realized a little farther along that it was a little bit more of a warm welcome. It was just the Jim Sammons welcome. You know what I mean? Right. He was ribbing me just like he would any of the rest of his buddies. And I was being a little thin-skinned about it. So, you know, but like Chad and I mean, the first conversation we had was when we were launching our product. And I was trying to get people to give me some feedback before we did that. And he was the president of a Tidewater fishing club, you know, so I'd reached out to him. He called me. He was stationed in Germany. It was funny. He called me. We ended up talking for about 2 hours. And I'm not kidding you. This is back in 2009. Actually, it might have even been the end of 2008. I think it was before we launched. But anyway, he told me that he was getting ready to start KBF. He was working. He had just published his book. He told me about kayak bass fishing. Back then, it was all coastal. There was very little kayak bass fishing, at least in the industry. There were people doing it, but there wasn't an industry awareness of it.
Right.
He was like, there's more miles of shoreline. There's more, he told me all the reasons that kayak bass fishing was going to become the thing.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about catch, photo, release tournaments, which I'd never heard of, and how they were going to, one day we'll have $100,000 payouts and you'll see the BASS guys, competing in these tournaments. And I mean, really everything that's happened since, he laid out for me in a 2-hour conversation 13 years ago. So, from day one, I was like, he was cool. We're both idea guys. So we had a lot of fun with that kind of stuff. And Chad helped us early on with making sure our products are relevant as we were getting to understand the industry. Man, we're in a sport that's just full of great people. Even some of the people that I used to not get along with, mostly competitors. And really, if I'm being completely honest, that's because it was me. I was the jerk in most of those situations. I was young and hanging on by a thread and overly defensive. You know what I mean? Just stuff you have to learn when you're young.
Oh yeah.
But there are very few people. There's a couple of specific personalities that I strongly dislike, but not many.
Right.
Most of the people that I know in this industry and that I talk to, I've become friends with most of them.
Yeah, I think that's saying that, that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is how much these brands actually talk. I mean, while kayak fishing has gotten bigger, we're still a relatively small niche when you look at the fishing industry and how big of a conglomerate that it is.
Right.
I mean, everybody still talks. Jackson talks to Hobie.
But, Bill Bragman, that owned Yak Gear, Bill and I for the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, call each other on a fairly regular basis, always sit down and, talk at the trade shows and stuff like that. We realize we're competitors, but we also realize that we're both good competitors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think our industry has evolved to this like really, really innovative space where everybody is really kind of like fighting to do something better and different as opposed to, just kind of like, duplication and commoditizing and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when that's what your competition's doing, you have a great industry because the sport's improving, the industry's improving, the opportunities for dealers and consumers are improving, and you're not just constantly stepping on each other's toes.
Right.
And when you don't have good competitors like Yak Gear and Railblazer and some of the other ones, you have the bad competitors.
Yeah.
We've got some big brands that I won't mention in the sport that have just walked all over our IP and other things. But even worse than that now is this carbon copy Chinese stuff that's starting to come out on Amazon. We're figuring out now how to deal with that. But yeah, good competition is good, and we all have the interests of the industry in mind. And the rising tide really does raise all ships. There's more opportunity out there than any one company is ever going to be able to capitalize on.
Yeah.
So, you get a little older and more mature and you start to realize that stuff. In the early days, I was sure we were going to go out of business tomorrow if they launched a product that could be, or something, I just was always waiting for, I refer to myself as a visionary optimist and a practical pessimist. We can do anything, but we're probably going to fail tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right on. Well,
Yeah.
we're at 38 minutes past here, and I know you've got to get going here in like 2 minutes. So I'm going to let you, usually I say thank the people you want to thank and all that fun stuff. So you can thank whoever you want to thank, but leave us with your 2 cents.
My 2 cents, boy, that's a broad one.
Hey, this is Orion Podcast. You can be as broad as it wants to go.
Well, the thanks, if you really boil it down to the folks that are responsible for our success, it's definitely the kayak fishing consumer, the person who's out there on the water, who believes what we're doing and appreciates what we're doing and how we're doing it, and that resonates with our brand as much as they do our products, with how we do things. And I can't tell you, especially coming from automotive where your customers hate you, I can't tell you how amazing it is to be treated the way that we're treated, So, and that's very also empowering for our team, when they go on a fishing trip in Canada and somebody wants their autograph because they were in a YakAttack hoodie and they found out they work at YakAttack. I mean, it literally happened to our engineering manager.
Wow.
That's where the thanks are. The 2 cents. Whew, gosh, man, that's a tough one. My 2 cents is if it's good for the people around you, and if it's good for the neighborhood, it'll be good for whatever endeavor it is that you're trying to do. And I think a lot of businesses and even individuals, I think sometimes we get lost in the results and we forget about the how we're getting there. And I think in our country right now, in this particular moment in time, that's just advice that works in a lot of universal situations.
That's solid, man. That is solid.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
We appreciate you being on here. We will
Thank you,
let you
guys.
go, and I hope that we can do this again and have another conversation. I feel like this could be super insightful.
Yeah.
Let me know when, man. I enjoyed it. I
go for
appreciate
round
y'all
two.
having me on.
There ain't nothing you'll find us. We're always ready to talk about business and learn something. So, but
we'll talk about a little bow hunting too.
Yep,
we can absolutely do that. We can
Absolutely.
absolutely do that.
Well, Luther, thanks for being here, man. We will let
guys.
you go.
Yeah,
I
good to meet you, man.
appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
Take care.
There you guys have it. Well of a guest. Well of a guest.
No, that was a lot of info packed into a short period of time there.
And I feel like I needed to write stuff down.
Yeah.
There's more to be learned.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
There's more to be learned. I feel like, conversation afterwards that we'll probably have is like, we need, like, that's like the headspace where we live.
Yeah. The guys like that have built, well, I mean, for instance, Nick that I, do a lot of work with, and I mean, what they have under one roof in a 60,000 square foot worth of facility, and they need another 40,000 square foot in a new facility just to expand and do the things that he wants to do. Just talking to those guys and the things they've, done in the past, and the product development and the R&D and the time that's went into what they built and, sustained a U.S. manufacturing business is pretty awesome.
Well, it's inspiring, man. I mean, you listen to those type of people and those creative minds, and like Luther, hearing where he came from and how he got to where he's at. Mm-hmm. That's inspiring. I mean, we've all been in situations. I feel like for where we're at, what we're doing, a lot of it's learned on own. There's been some schooling here and there, but it's been taking that initiative to get to that step, get to that next phase, and it's really incredible to listen to other people's story and feel inspired by them.
Yeah. It's, I mean, we talk about it all the time, but it's taken 7 or 8 years to get to where we are. And had we known what we know now, we probably could have done it in
a week,
a quarter of the time,
Yeah. Technology would have sped up. It would have been great too.
Yeah. And I mean, just taking inspiration from a few different areas that we didn't know even existed at that point in time, I think.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And seeing where it was going fully, I think would have been good too. I don't think we seen where it was going, but we didn't see totally where it was going at the time.
Yeah. We didn't know exactly how to get there, but
yeah, it's all learning. But I think, trial and error, somebody hearing it from somebody else and hearing their process of trial and error, I think is monumental, and being able to get yourself there. And like I said, it builds you up, get you pumped.
Yeah. Super cool and awesome to, to hear how they started wanting to keep everything, USA made and designed right here. And, ultimately built for the customers that do things just the same way they do.
Well, and, working in small companies and different things, and building that family. And, when you hear your employer come to you and treat you like a family, and to see your kids grow up and know your kids and the different things that goes into stuff like that, man, it makes you feel good about your job. It really does.
For sure. Yeah. That's a big difference in working at a place like that. And some of the other places I have worked in the past, it's just, you're a number, how much do you get done today?
Yep. And that's good to see everybody's ideas coming to the page. I mean, that's, whether it's a YakAttack, and I think some of the new boats that have come out of Jackson Kayak, like the Coosa X and stuff, seeing everybody's ideas hit the floor and come together and merge into this one item is just freaking cool. Building the Orion cooler, some of the stuff that went into that, you guys hear the backstory on that. How do we make it better? Everybody's got a cooler. Everybody can go get a Coleman at Walmart for nothing.
Yeah.
But how do we take a cooler? How do we make it better? How do we create, American jobs with this cooler? And it's huge. It's huge. And it's that ideology that just takes it all to the next level.
Yeah. And I think as we see more and more manufacturing coming back here, you're going to see some really premium products come out of that because, we're designing for us, we're solving the issues that we have. We're not buying something that comes from overseas. We're, they're just pumping stuff out to sell volume or something of that nature. We're building products that are literally purpose built for what we want to use them for.
Yep, 100%. So as we move on here, man, how was you just got back from ATA? Got to do this podcast in reverse tonight.
I say just got back. It's I guess it has been almost right out a week now.
I feel like you just got back.
It feels longer ago than that. It feels longer ago than that to me. No, it was good. It was ATA as an organization, I think, probably needs to change some things. Attendance was down. It was a decent show, but it's not like the ATA of old, when you and Reed were with me the last time. Not nearly that amount of people there, and I don't think COVID and all that stuff had anything to do with it. Last year maybe, but not this year. Manufacturer, while they say manufacturer membership numbers are up, your big manufacturers weren't there. Matthews wasn't there, Elite wasn't there, Hoyt wasn't there, Sitka wasn't there, Under Armour was not there.
Wow.
Some of your big manufacturers like that weren't there. And, I got to thinking about it and, of course, talked with a lot of different people. And the cost for these companies to go do those shows, when you're well over $150,000 just to bring in your booth and your product and your team, travel, room, food, all of it. It's a very expensive trip, and if you can write those same orders while staying home, And back when you guys were going with me, ATA was where everybody launched their new product for the year.
Right. Now it's all digital media.
With digital media, social media marketing, all that stuff, it's not that way anymore. Guys are doing full-on media launches with, short films and a lot of, sweet photos and ads and imagery and campaigns, ad campaigns on social and stuff like that. Everybody's already seen the product, and they put in their orders when it was launched. So
100%.
Why do they need to come to the show? So I think that's another thing that the organization needs to look at and say, okay, why do we need all these guys to show up to this show? What do we need to do to draw them here and keep this show kind of what it is it's going to take some thought for them. It's going to have to be an experience for both the manufacturers and the dealers, because it is a dealer-only show. You'll get some media guys there too, a lot of your TV show personalities and stuff like that. But for your dealers, it's kind of a vacation. And I think your manufacturers are going to have to see some marketing opportunity from the show to want to invest and keep coming back.
Yeah, because that's what a lot of people don't realize is how expensive the booth space is for the ICAST, ATA, Bassmaster Classic, any of these big time events like this. It's expensive. Not just like $10,000, like tens of thousands of dollars to get a booth.
Yeah, depending on the size of it. With ATA, there's anywhere from a 10 by 10 booth up to, in good grief, some of those companies had massive, 50 by 50 booths and stuff like that. I can't imagine what those booths cost. For a space that big, and most of the time when you see one that big, it's someone like Paradigm who's got 7 or 8 companies under one umbrella. But yeah, it's going to have to change a little bit, or I don't see that show being around much longer, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Like I said, it's just the changing of times as we move deeper into a digital media era. Everything's live, everything's right now. Companies we can sit here and launch a full product right here on StreamYard, what we used to launch our podcast, and have a conversation with the entire team and play the videos. And it's pretty incredible what we can do digitally now and touch more hands and more of our audience at a keystroke.
Yeah, and selfishly for what you and I do, I mean, as much as I don't want to see the ATA show go away, because there's a lot of friends that I have from all over the country that is the one and only time of year I get to see them and have face-to-face conversations. And I've done a ton of networking at that show over the years. I mean, that was my 7th or 8th ATA, and I mean, pretty much 90 to 95% of the friendships and connections I have in this industry are because of that show. So I don't want to see it go away, but at the same time, like with everything moving more digital, more and more digital all the time, and social media marketing, what it is and what we're trying to do. I mean, I was able to slip out of the booth and get to meet some new folks that I hadn't talked to before, make some solid connections with companies I've worked with in the past, and 2023 is looking good for Hunt, Leet, and Limestone Media. So,
oh yeah, without a doubt. Well, guys, we're going to cap that off, man. For the 25th edition of the Orion Podcast. I don't know how many actual episodes we've got up on the channel, but without a doubt, you guys should head over to Spotify, Amazon, Samsung. Give us a listen, Orion Podcast. You can go back through all the previous episodes of the Orion Podcast and Jackson Kayak Dock Talk under one roof.
But one of these days, I'll get that Apple Podcast thing figured out.
Yeah, one of these days. We'll get there. If Apple Podcast is listening, we need help. We failed to negotiate that term. And if anybody wants to, come on and be our IT guy,
it doesn't pay well.
It doesn't pay well, but you can email us at info@limestonemediahouse.com and we'll get you taken care of. With that being said, we got to thank the people that make this thing possible every week or every other week. It is Jackson Kayak. You can visit Jackson Kayak at jacksonkayak.com. Head out to your local dealership, demo a boat, try it out, and see what everything's all about. Most of all, Orion Coolers, which is part of the Jackson Kayak umbrella, can be found at jacksonkayak.com. Super stoked, man. These coolers are inspired outdoors, and they inspire us to keep moving, keep us grinding out on the road or on the trail, or heck, man, we've had like tons of ice fishing stuff here coming up on the socials here lately. So wherever you want to go, Orion can help you get there. Lastly, new to the list, we got Z Pro batteries helping me and Zach out this summer. Go and power our boats up and get us through some kayak fishing trips, I'm hoping. So we got so shout out to Z Pro. Check them out at zprolithium.com. Pick yourself up a cool battery. They're good. I'm very impressed with them. So yeah, everybody have a good night.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna leave my 2 cents. Can we leave our 2 cents?
I don't know how many cents I go with inflation. My 2 cents is worth
I got
not a whole lot, but
I'm gonna give 3 worded 2 cents. Remember, it's gonna be more than that. Remember to bake in the wow.
We'll leave it at that because I got nothing.
Sounds good. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you at Jackson Kayak Dock Talk Thursday night. Come hang out with us right here, Jackson Kayak YouTube and Jackson Kayak Facebook. Got it.
There it is.